Hi, this is a course in how to use fuzzy set qualitative comparative analysis. I'm Arch Woodside. I'm a retired professor at Boston College. And today we're actually going to do some skill exercises in looking at multiple outcomes in the use of the program fSQCA. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, this is lesson 9, and I'm going to share my screen with you and go through some slides with you briefly. We'll actually do some analysis here. So we're looking at multiple outcome modeling of cases. All right, where cases configurations are both the antecedents as well as the outcomes. If you're interested in, if you have a question, you can contact me at this number here, and right here. Okay, this email address. It would be best to reach me, or if you want to have a copy of something in terms of some put here. I showed you this briefly last time. Here is a situation where we got 5 antecedent conditions, which include corporate social performance, high versus low. And you can think of this really at 3 levels, or where it's not relevant would be another condition. Okay, so there'd be 3 levels here. And debt to assets ratio would be an antecedent condition. And total sales versus total sales being high versus total sales being low. These are conditions. Don't think all of them as variables, but think of them as conditions. Again, for each of these, there's 3 conditions really. Number of employees, a measure of the size of the firm, would be high versus low, and the third condition would be it's irrelevant to the outcome. And then another one would be total assets, high total assets, low, and then negation, in other words, low total assets, and the third would be irrelevant. So if you look at the potential configurations available, it would be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So that would be 243 configurations. Now, some of those cells in the 3 by 3 by 3 by 3 by 3 table would be empty of cases, but in some cases, and some of the cells would have, say, 30 or 40 cases out of your sample of 500 or 40 or whatever your sample size is. The outcomes, it would be a combination of ROA and ROE, return on assets and return on equity. And there's 4 potential combinations shown here that you would be studying. We could have more than 2 outcomes here, but in combination, or we could have 3 or 4 or 5 outcomes. But right now, we would have, for example, high return on assets with high return on equity. And then the second one would be high return on assets and low return on equity. And then the third one would be low return on assets and then high ROE. And the last one would be, both of them would be low. And, there's no reason why we can't look at the different combinations of outcomes. And typically, we'll have cases in all 4 of these cells. And the beauty of multiple case analysis is we can actually do it here. So the core question the researcher asks and constructs is, which of the 32 configurations, and I say 32 because I was going by 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, but we can think of it as 243 as well. And so what we're actually going to look at is ESG, which is a measure of corporate social performance that companies are mandated to provide information on in the developed world. And So we have environmental, social, and governance, and this is for 2011. So I put 11 there, and then return on assets for 2011. And so this would be our antecedent conditions, and then our outcome would be the same thing, but only for 2015. And one possibility would be that all four of these outcomes, cases that there's a set of cases that do well on all four. In other words, the top quintile, for example, among the companies in your sample. Now, in this particular instance, we have 66 companies and a sample of Swedish firms. And Sweden, by the way, has taken the lead in ESG reporting. Okay. So the data tends to be very much available and well, soundly collected. So one thing we could study is is there companies that exist that have high performance on all four of these conditions? And a second question is, does that set of cases also do well in 2015? Another really basic question would be, for the companies that have high performance in 2015 on say, ROA, a single condition, or all four of these conditions, is there some combination among the 32 or 243 configurations that predict accurately that outcome of doing well in 2015? Now, if you look in this figure, you see that there's four additional conditions up on top, whether it's a service or a product, the firm size. Think of this as high, large, medium, and small firm size, and global firm or a domestic firm in Sweden. And is it a B2B or a B2C, or is it both? So if you have although those three possible conditions, B2B, business to business, or business to consumer, or both, and you have service or a product or both, so that would be three there, and firm size, small, medium, large, and global and versus domestic orientation, or the possibility of all three, global and domestic, all two. So it would be 3 by 3 by 3 by 3. So we would have a total of 81 combinations or cells or configurations that could occur. And the question is, if you want a deep knowledge of a model that worked well between for arrow 1, you might add in the arrow 3. Now you could do that using the software, will do the analysis for you, or you can specify a particular configuration of firm conditions that you believe would work well in giving you high or low. You can also model low on these four. So, and if you think of each of these four being high or low, you end up with 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or 16 combinations here. Or think of it as 3 by 3 by 3 by 3, either high or low, or it doesn't matter if they're it's not really relevant in the model. So by giving you numerical examples, I think you'll see it clear. So we're going to show a few firms are able to achieve high membership scores in the following complex outcome. Is that supported by factually? Do we actually have that? All right. So we one question is, what are the core ESG and ROA configurations that actually occur in 2011, 2015? We can answer that question. And secondly, what a set of firms achieve what set of firms achieved the following configurations in 2011, 2015, if any? This is high in all four: ESG and ROA, environmental, social, governance, and return on assets. And then a third question is, does the following complex antecedent condition is it accurate in indicating high performance? So this is all high in 2011, giving you all high in 2015, all high outcomes. And this statement is a Boolean algebra statement of you have to be in the top quintile, for example, on all four of these. And do we have any firms that are high in all four? And then of those firms, are they all high also in 2015? And then the Milton Friedman, what I call the Milton Friedman hypothesis statement would be firms actually should score low on E, environmental, low on S, and low on G, and that will give you high ROI. Friedman preached that firms should be only after one thing, and that's return for their stockholders being a highly profitable operation. Now, the people who preach about ESG, I like to say that if you're really good at ESG, it's going to pay off by higher financial performance. And so we can look at those too, as well as other questions. So this would be the Friedman statement that low, for example, bottom quintile E, bottom quintile S, bottom quintile G, coupled with high performance in 11 should be a remarkably good news for return on assets in 15. And then another question is, are models for Arrow 2 useful for accurately predicting the competitive outcome models? And then additional question, are models for Arrow, this should be 3 in here. And we can go ahead and take a second and put 3 in here. And let's see here. This is predicting complex outcome models here. There we go, complex outcome models. Arrow 2, does Arrow 2 really help or not? And Arrow 3, is Arrow 3 useful? And turns out it is useful. And this is the data that we're going to do here. And the data has 66 firms, and it's a very nice set of data. And so I'm letting you have the data to take a look at, and you can actually copy and put this in an Excel spreadsheet, CSV file. And so here, for example, in column B is the environmental performance in 2011, and this is calibrated data, and this is for 20 firms, and then we have it for an additional 20 firms, and then the remaining firms, the 26 firms, and we have ESG for 11, ESG for 15, ROA for 11, revenue for 11, earnings before interest and taxes, and ROA for 15, revenue for 15, and EBIT for 15. And this is market orientation, company orientation. The big thing here at the end here is B2B. Are they a B2B firm? The first one is, and the second one, not so much. It's some, but the principal business is B2B. And then, is it a service or a product? And it's 0.95, so it's probably it's a product. And then firm size, the And firm size here has not been calibrated. So just firm size in 11. So, we won't use that today because we didn't calibrate it, but we can easily calibrate that. But it's not calibrated here. All right. So let's answer the question. Do any firms occur that score high in all four conditions in 2011? And if any do almost all score high in 2015 on the four conditions? And so we compute this ES E11, S11, G11, and ROA11. Now, I've done that, and I want to show you how you go about doing that. So I'm going to go into fSQCA, and let's take a second and do that together. So I'm going to call up the program. Okay, and then here we go. Here's the data. So I just said, let's compute a fuzzy statement for 11 here. And remember what we got here for 11. It's right here, all right, right here. Those four together. And so compute, and we fuzzy and condition. So we bring that up to the expression line, fuzzy and inside the parentheses, we want to put in the four sub conditions. E11, S11, G11, and ROA11. And we'll call this ESG11 and ROA11. And click on OK. And I'm going to save it right away because the program likes you to save it. By the way, just use lowercase numbers for your names of conditions when you type in your conditions. Let's look at the end of the data just to make sure it's there. And it's okay. There it is. Okay, and if you look at this, one of the question is, back in 2011, did we have cases that have, say, scores above 0.8? Okay, and if you look down here, just go down and look at your data. There's nothing wrong with actually looking at your data. And do we have people that scored above 0.8? And it doesn't look like it, among all four. But we got a guy here, a case here, a company, in other words, at 0.62, and that looks like case number 6. All right, and here's 0.76. So that's fairly good among all four conditions. All right, but and so if we look further through the data set here, just eyeball it for a second, we end up with a very limited number of cases. Here's one down here, and it looks like case 49. So we've actually calculated now, and we have very few, but we have some. But we do the same thing for E15, S15, and G15. All right, and then we plot the two together. So we calculate this, and then we do the plot. Now I've already calculated this for 2015. So we can go ahead and look at the plot. So let's look at the plot together. And I'll let you do the computation of the fuzzy statement, because you know, it's very easy to do here. And I just want to plot it for you. So if we do the plot, and to do the plot, we just click on graph, fuzzy, and then XY plot. And then the output is going to be ESG ROA for 15. And the antecedents is going to be what we just calculated. And the cases would be the case names. And then the plot. So here's the plot. And notice right off the consistency is 0.585. So we're not happy. You know, we want consistency to be 0.80. We want to have a few cases up in this region of the XY plot, and we don't have that. But we do have a couple firms in the second quadrant up here, and who've done well. They're above 0.5. For 2011, and they're above 0.5 in 2015. But we have a number of firms that only did well across all four conditions. We've got all these firms that did well, all of these. But sad to say, only two of them managed to do it for the two different time periods. And I put in the lag. I had the data for 14 and 13 and 12, but I put in a nice lag in it to see if this continued on, you know, the effect, if there was any. And if we click on the dots, and then let's see, there's Swedish Match Company, and the second dot, Beller Uds Kortsen, something like that. And again, these are Swedish companies. And so this does not look great. It does not look great, but that's how you would actually do the calculations. The coverage is great. The coverage means that of the companies that score high in the model, they tend to represent the majority of companies that are above 0.50. So for the coverage is 0.78. So that means that we have two of the, in this case, the actual calculation for coverage depends upon all the input from all the conditions. And I showed you the formula for that in an earlier lesson. But this consistency index is below our benchmark, typical benchmark of 0.58. So we're not thrilled by the look of this. So the first statement is not does not, these initial things indicate we have a very limited number of firms, and it's actually asking a high order that we have this type of support for such a strenuous performance. So it doesn't work that we can expect to have high ESG and return on assets in 11 carry on into for 2015. So the coverage index was very, very good, but the consistency index was not. And this is what we just did, where we created the configuration for 11. And there it is for the 15, configuration for 15. And we use the fuzzy and operation in doing that. And this is the output. and we can put this, we can copy it and put it in our paper if we wanted to write it up. Now, if we just look at ROA, these three in combination as a complex statement for 11, do they predict well for return on assets in 15? And the answer is no, they don't. It's just looking at return on assets for 15. So this is a singular outcome, and we get 0.58. And for consistency, we got too many scores down in the bottom right to have very good consistency. Think of consistency like this. Among the companies that have scores above 0.5 for the antecedent configuration, which is ESG, most of them should be above the diagonal here to have high consistency. But we only have 2 companies above the diagonal. And so we have a number of companies below the diagonal, indicating that of the companies doing well in ESG for 2011, they don't perform particularly well in return on assets in 2015. So that does not hold. So the question is, does the model work? Is it useful for indicating high scores and return on assets in 15? And the answer is no. All right. And then we look at return on assets in 11. Does that predict in return on assets in 15? And the answer is no, it doesn't. We got 0.678, 0.676. So the consistency is not there. But the coverage is quite good, 0.82, meaning that we only have one firm that scored low on return on assets in 11, who also scored high on return on assets in 15. But we have lots of companies who scored high on 15, on 11, return on assets 11, who scored high and low on 15. So
5 minutes.
All right. So therefore, it's good to recognize this is a sufficient, but I'm sorry, it's a necessary but not sufficient condition to have high ROI in 15, because this corner tends to be empty except for this one company. So that's how you interpret this. We have necessary but not sufficient. Necessary, you sort of have to do well in the past to do well in the future, but it's not. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to. All right, so if we turn to what models work well for indicating high ROA in the future, and I actually did the analysis, and we do have models that work well. And here's the models that work well. 3 models, and 2 of them have high performance in 11 in ROA, and then in combination with poor governance scoring and poor environmental, and it doesn't matter what the S is, what social is. That's model 1. Model 2 is good high ROA, and then poor governance again, and poor social performance, low social performance in 2011. So that works well. And then the third model that works well is poor performance in 11, coupled with high governance and low social performance and high E performance, and that works well. So we can come up with different configurations, and we do that using the analysis command in fSQCA. And and remember how we do the analysis command. We go ahead. It's like stepwise regression. I don't know if we would recognize this, but this is sort of on our own. But this is sort of what Freeman is talking about. Treating not providing a lot for your employees is the negation of social is in 2 of the 3 models that work well in giving you high OA in 15. So I'm going to need to stop here, but I just want to say that this is very, very helpful in terms of being able to predict a one outcome versus a lot of outcomes. And this page here looks at arrow 2 results, where you're just doing arrow 2. Is it sufficient to use information in arrow 2 to predict high ROA? And the answer is yes. It does work. So this is the model up here. Return on assets in 15 using just firm information. And can you do it? And the answer is yeah. In 2 of the 3 models shown here, it does it. And the first model includes small firms who are B2C and not B2B. The second model is product firms that are not B2C and are B2B. And the third one is large size firms, global. And the second and third models are global firms. So arrow 2 works well. And look, if you'd like to read some more about this,
1 minute. 1 minute.
It's in this paper here, and it's available at Journal of Business Research. I'll send it to you if you contact me on the analysis of ESG. So that's where this lesson ends. Kind of rushed, but thanks for being here, and stay tuned for lesson 10. It's our final lesson, and it's on predictive validation and robust testing in your calibrations. So we'll see you for lesson 10. Bye now.